Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good ever what time of day it happens to be that you are listening to the Tattooed Teacher podcast. On this episode, I have Alicia Cohen. Now, Alicia is an educational publisher, the managing director and founder of Amba Press. She's also been a managing director, a regional director, very heavily invested in the publishing industry. Alicia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Philip. It's a delight to be here.
Well, I wanted to get you on because I've had a number of your authors actually as guests of the podcast. So I thought, you know what, let's go straight to the horse's mouth, so to speak, to see why you have gone into educational publishing among all, above all other things. I mean, publishing, it's a wide industry, isn't it? There's everything and anything. But why have you chosen to specifically stay within the educational framework?
I fell into publishing like many people do. I had a work experience student the other week with me, and she was 16, and I was talking about my experience in a newspaper. And I guess I was always interested in books and words and writing. But I was at university studying a social science degree, and a friend said to me, I know this amazing woman, you would just love her. You love reading books, you love, books, and you must go and meet her. And that woman was Elaine Brownlow, who ran a publishing house called Hawker Brownlow Education. And I was a very doughy-eyed 20-year-old, and I started off as an editorial assistant for her, literally, helping move manuscripts from editors to production. And I fell in love with Hawker Brownlow. And I started my career there. Really quickly, though, she said to me, editorial, meh, production. And the production world just opened up. And, Hawker Brownlow had print on demand. Within probably about a year or two of starting with Elaine, she was like, go and do a grad dip in publishing. And I was like, sure, why not? I've just finished an undergrad degree. I'll go and do a grad dip in publishing. And she kindly offered to finance that as well and pay for me to go and study.
Wow.
So off I went and went to RMIT University and studied a grad dip in publishing. And from there, I went on and worked in other publishing houses like Cambridge University Press. I moved overseas and worked for HMSO, TSO, the stationery office, which was the Queen's publisher. So I worked in, government publishing for 5 years. Came back and worked in Waters Kluwer, which is a big law, business, corporate publisher for about 8 years. And then from there, I went across to Routledge. And what an experience that was at Taylor and Francis. I was the director there, John Hattie, Todd Whitaker. It was just the most amazing experience. From there, I went back to Hawker Brownlow, which was just an absolute joy. Elaine was retiring, and I took over as MD there. And they were sold to Solution Tree. But my time there kind of really was like, I'd come back home at Hawker Brownlow. Yep. I was like, this is what I loved. I remember signing Selena Fisk when I was back there, and it was just an absolute joy. Glenn Pearsall, so many of my friends, my favourites, etc. kind of at that time at Hawker Brownlow. They were acquired by Solution Tree in the US, and so we parted ways. And so I was kind of like, oh, well, I'll do some consulting, etc. But my love of the educational publishing was quite strong. I'd had a child by then. I ended up having a second child as well. And in that time, I was like, well, maybe this is the time to really start scratching that itch. And what also happened was Dr Michael Nagel from the University of Sunshine Coast called me just as I had my second baby and was like, oh, congratulations, you've had a baby. I've got some books. I've missed you. And I was like, I'm on mat leave. I've got plenty of time. I can do some books in my spare time. And at that point, I got some business funding and started Amba Press from there. And what a joy it's been. And it has been a bit of a case of, from there, I published Dr. Michael Nagel's books, and I started calling out to my other friends that I'd known over the years, Andrew Fuller, etc. And, I asked them to come and publish at Amba Press. And that is pretty much how Amba Press started about 5 years ago, and how it's, started to kind of happen.
Wow. So, I've You mentioned so many authors and so many publishing houses, and being in education for as long as I've been in now, it's, oh yeah, I know that one. I've seen that one. I've seen that one on someone's desk, and I've seen that author somewhere, and yeah, we all know Hattie, and there's all those things that are happening, and it's a strange world, the educational world. It sort of draws you in, and whether you appreciate it or not, it has something that captivates you and holds you in. So it draws you, and it sounds like very similar to you. You're in publishing, which is, you're not in the classroom at all, but you're in this field that you absolutely love.
I couldn't agree more. And I think, some of that probably came on after I had children as well, Philip. I guess, I started dropping my children to, educational institutions every day, whether it was early childhood or now I have, two children in primary school as well. And I guess some of it is a real interest in what teachers are doing. When I started Amba Press, I had spent a lot of time at Routledge with academics. I'd done a lot of higher educational kind of publishing as well. And I guess, when I hand my children over to a classroom or a teacher, I want to have a conversation with that teacher. And I guess, I really discovered there was a lot of, this academic stuff, and I'd come from a lot of academia and academic education. And I guess I really wanted to start making things that were practical as well. And, that, teachers that were in the classroom could pick up, could access, could help them think differently. And so I think, you're absolutely right. The more I, get involved with the education industry, the more I'm obsessed about it, the more I'm interested, the more I really want to have those bigger conversations about, connection, about AI, about teacher well-being. And so a lot of, what we publish here and a lot of like our interest areas really coming from kind of teachers in the field, teachers I'm talking to every single day. I drop off at two different schools, so I'm talking constantly to teachers as well. So yeah, you're right. The education industry, and once you have children in it, it is an absolutely fascinating world.
Yeah, and every teacher has a story to tell, and every teacher has an impact, being a parent certainly changes your view of schooling and education and what you want from it or what can be gained from it, and also that you're sending your little human into the care of others, so you want to make sure that they are well equipped, well trained, and nice people will look after your little, but also educate them in a really good way and thorough way. So with that, how do you get in contact? Like, how do you reach out to these teachers? How do they to get them to tell their stories?
It's a bit of both. I do read a lot. And I do read a lot on LinkedIn. I read a lot on Substack. I even peruse Instagram for people as well. Especially as the press was starting out, I did reach out to a lot of people. For example, Leon Furs was somebody I reached out to very early on via LinkedIn and said, I think your writing's fantastic. Can we have a chat about it? I sometimes, for people I'm quite interested in, I will post them a book with a little handwritten note saying, one day I hope to be publishing your book as well. But ultimately, a lot of people also reach out to me as well. There's a lot of people out there who have half-written manuscripts, who have frameworks or ideas. And, ultimately, I say, come, I don't really mind if it's, not a half-baked idea, but, come and let's have a conversation quite early. We're very open to where people come in the process, because people come in the writing process at very different levels, different ways. Some people don't come to us or come to me until their manuscript is fully written. And then I'm like, okay, great, let's have a look at it. And then some people are really early on in their conversation and just want to come and have a bit of a chat and learn a little bit more about the process, what a book would look like. I also spend a lot of time with kind of authors who, maybe are educational consultants who, are like, well, these are the things I'm talking about. So we have a look at kind of some of what they're talking about at the moment. And, what the market's looking like as well, or what's of interest. I read a lot, though, I've got to say, which is an absolute joy, but I also read a lot from overseas, and so I do really keep an eye out on kind of the big topics, the big things that are people. Otherwise, also, I love the educational conferences. I'm a bit of a floozy and try and visit EduTech, National Education Summit. Ask any of my authors, they'll all see me at all of the conferences. But I also love listening to authors or principals, teachers, anyone go out and talk at one of those big events. Normally I sit there sometimes in some of the talks, I can see the whole book as they're talking, and I'm like, at the end they get off the stage and I wait for everyone because I'm like, you go and have your fans and everything. Then I'm at the end like, hi. Here's my business card. You should chat to me about writing a book because I just saw your whole book and how it was structured, etc. And it is very much it is quite a collaborative process as well, I guess. Most of the authors really do, it's not start a relationship, but, they do want some feedback. We do give feedback here as well. It's a gift. But, really kind of, like some support with their writing. And, that's what we're in the business of doing, helping people and authors write and make books and stuff like that as well. So, yeah, we do lots of things for authors, to come to us, but also lots of people, we go out and seek out authors as well.
Yeah, so it must be quite I guess, a blessing and a curse in a way to be able to go and hear someone speak, and then all of a sudden your brain is almost going, well, hold on, I'm trying to listen to them. I want to hear what they're actually saying, but your brain's going, hold on, that's chapter 1. Okay, that should be actually chapter 7, and that should be, and so you're rearranging their keynote into a book, but then you're going, oh, hold on, I've got to listen. So how do you, so you can see a book forming from someone's 20-minute, 30-minute, 40-minute speech?
Yeah, I can. I sometimes can, especially if there's a framework or something involved. I met a prospective author at the National Education Summit, I think 3 years ago. And the moment I met her, I was like, this is cool. I have not seen this kind of thing before. You need to be writing a book. You're starting to run courses. And she was like, yep, I don't have time for you. Sure. And then the next year I turn up at her stand again. Hi. And I gave her somebody else's book. And look, somebody else in the similar field just wrote a book on something very similar to you. Here's an example. And yet again, she said, thank you. So lovely to chat to you again. Lovely to see you. And I was like, oh, God, you're killing me. Of course, I turned up again last year and I was like, I can make it really easy. I can see your book. Please do a call with me. Let's have a chat about your book. And she was like, oh, this woman won't leave me alone. And I was like, I think where you're at kind of thing. And she was like, I'll have a chat with my husband. And so I think it was maybe early January. She said to me, okay, fine, we'll do the call. So we did the call, which was great. We had a really good chat. I told her what I could see. We had a look at kind of some of the things. I kind of talked her really through how we could set it up, structure it. We start with a table of contents. I want to see it annotated, send that through to me. Let me have a look at that. I'll give you some feedback. Then I always ask my authors to write a first chapter. They can write any chapter they want, the chapter that really calls to them, chapter that's just going to fall out of them. Write that chapter first. Then I ask them to send it into. And I'm like, great. Have a look, give some feedback, see what I'd like. We send back some feedback, write another chapter, send it in to me. And, this author that I spoke to, she's like, yeah, that's nice. And I think I pestered out of her a table of contents during the term 1. And then term 2, she said, I've got a bit of time over term 1 holidays. I might start writing. And she wrote a chapter every day for 10 days, which was about, 2,500, 3,000 words. It just poured out of her once she got going. And the book I'll be launching in September. It's come into production, etc. And every night she sent me a chapter over those 10 days. And I sent feedback every single day back, etc. And here we are. We'll be launching the book at the National Education Summit 4 years later, which is, an absolute joy. And, we were able, to talk her through, make sure, she got it all out of her system, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. So some authors can just punch it out like that. They just go, "Yep, I've got it. I've got my time," and they're just wordsmiths. And then I guess
Yes.
some it would almost be like
No,
getting
I
that
don't know.
author.
I don't know if we come across anyone who's an absolute wordsmith. I'm going to be honest with you, Philip. Everyone needs work and iterations. So no one just pumps out a manuscript. I'm going to say, even this woman didn't pump it out. She just spent 10 days writing, 30, 40,000 words, 3,000 words a chapter. She just had courses. It was all very clear. It was ready to go. But yes, sorry, I digress.
But she was able 40,000 words in 10 days. Like for me, that's just a nightmare, and I would just go. I would just recoil in and just run away from every computer that I ever saw. But with some authors, they do the same thing, but they stretch it over a longer period. So is there do you have deadlines for these authors, or is it just, hey, let's just let this grow organically?
Look, I normally suggest, though, I don't mind if the book takes you a year to write, if it takes you 2 years to write. And some people, by the time I've got the manuscript, they have been potentially working on it for 4 or 5 years. So I don't mind how long it takes people. And Philip, if it took you a year, I would still be happy to accept it after a year. But I will say a lot of the time when I say to somebody, send me in a table of contents, let's have a look at it, I normally say pump out the writing in 4 months. And I say you should be writing a chapter once a fortnight. And why I say this is because you get that momentum. And once you actually get writing, and I know, Philip, you're like, oh my God, writing all these words every single day. But there is, once you get going, actually, it's quite cathartic. A lot of the time, people, you're writing potentially something that you've wanted to write for maybe 10 years that's been floating around in that head, and it's now there's actually some enjoyment and some getting it all out of your head and on paper. And, I say write the dirty draft. Right, just get it all out. And if you're a little bit over, a little bit under on word count, it does not matter. Word count actually, is a little less of the mean, but it's more about you can always iterate. Words on paper make books. You and me talking about a book is not going to make a book, but, people actually putting words on paper and their ideas, things can be edited. We talk a lot about the iteration process, especially through the writing process. We ask you to go back to review your work. We ask you to go out to reviewers to review your work. Every time somebody looks at your book and reviews it, any feedback I give you in the early developmental stages, that's even before our professional editors get to the manuscript as well, and they're incredible and so experienced as well. So I guess I see every time you sit there and work on your book, you're iterating and making it better. Everything you do is making it better. But I guess one of the reasons why I say pump it out is, the more you write, the more you get into your own head sometimes as well. And, the more you think It's never done, imposter syndrome kind of sets in as well. And it becomes this overarching, you're like, well, I'm writing a book, So I guess I'm just pump it out, get it out of your head. Because, 4 or 5 months of rolling around, 6 months rolling around in your head is probably enough. Also, things change and you might change jobs and stuff like that. So, yeah, so that's a bit of it. But look, I don't mind. Some people write a manuscript over 2 years, etc. I will say I have had an author recently. I said to her, this is what you're looking at, etc. I suggested to her she went away for a week and wrote it somewhere else. And she hired a beautiful beachside cabin, and she pumped out literally 5-6 chapters over that week in that beachside cabin. I don't think she had Wi-Fi.
That would probably help. It's yeah. I guess everyone has a process. And I mean, the way you just explain how you create a book is very much how I would be in my classroom with my students creating a project. It is and I've talked with other design teachers. Sort of the catch cry at the moment, design thinking. but that's, that's what you're doing with these guys. It's like you're looking for your ideation, your empathy, your refinement, your evaluation, and you're bringing all these things in, and it's a very messy process. But at the end, within all that messiness, then the beauty comes out.
100%, yes. And I think it's not just also the beauty, but also, I guess some of the things we really look at also is some of the goals with the authors. What is the end goal with publishing the book? Is it to support leaders moving forward? Is it to get you on different stages? Is it to, really get you more schoolwork, that kind of thing as well. So I guess, we have a bit of a chat with our authors, up front about, what do they really want to achieve? Is this something like that's going to complement when they do online courses, or they have their own course program as well? So I think it's really important for us to have a shared collaborative process as well. We are probably a little bit more hands-on than most publishers, and I guess that's probably one of the reasons why people enjoy working with us as well. We really want it to be a beautiful joint effort, a joint vision. I want to know the audience. And I guess I talk to a lot of my authors, and I guess my number one tip to anyone, and I guess I hope you don't mind a bit of a tip while we're here as well, but I say
No,
to most of my authors,
absolutely.
especially those who might be crafting first chapters, have a think about who you're writing the book for and the teacher that you're writing it for, the educator, if it's early childhood. Are they an early career teacher? Are they a couple of years out? Are they maybe 20 or 30 years out, and here you're writing a book about something that's quite new school? Have a think about that teacher. Philippa, you do a few events as well. When you come off the stage and there's a couple of potential teachers in the line waiting to have a bit of a chat to you, it's one of those teachers that you're writing the book for, because they want to get inside your head. They might have listened to you for 20, 30 minutes, but ultimately they want something that maybe they could read, read a chapter. Okay, great. I understand what I need to do and understand what I'm going to do in the lesson plan tomorrow. I'm going to tweak this a little bit. I'm going to tweak myself. Am I going to, and then they're going to give it a go. And so I say to you, even put a picture of that teacher on your screen at home, you're writing, and write like you're talking to them. Because if it lands for them, for that teacher, then it will land for a number of teachers as well. And I think that's probably normally my number one tip that I always give anyone who comes onto a call to me who's wanting to write and wanting to, have a think about that audience.
Yeah, because that would play a critical role in even just coming up with your idea. It's like, who is it for? Like, I mean, I have, and by the sounds of it, it's all those hallway water cooler conversations that if you sort of had
Yes.
a little recorder and just hold on to those thoughts, that could be the book that is within you, because, everyone has a story. One thing I love about doing the podcast is hearing everyone's story, and the advice and the experience and the fun and the ups and the downs that everyone has had paints this amazing picture of that person. It's not just, Alicia the book publisher. It's Alicia the mum, the friend, the editor, the I'm pulling my hair out because I'm so
Mm-hmm.
frustrated with everything that's going on. But it's all that entwined, and you actually managed to get people to put that down in a coherent and valuable way.
I also I do like a good story as well. I spend a lot of my time reading education books, not only ours, but a lot of others as well. But I read a lot of fiction as well. I'm actually a reader,
Yep.
which is a great thing to work in this industry, because I do read a fair amount in this year. But you're right, I love a good story as well. And I always say to my authors in that introduction, so just another kind of thing, another tip I say, when I say to my authors, when you're sitting down to write your book, write your chapters. Don't worry about the conclusion, because the conclusion, you're telling people what you told them. And the introduction,
Yeah.
Well, the introduction actually is really important because I want you to actually tell some of your story. Tell your readers a little bit about why you wrote this book, because your story is fascinating. And I always ask my authors to share a little Reader's Digest about themselves and what got them to that point today, or what got them to that point of coming onto a call and wanting to have a conversation with me about putting themselves out there and their ideas and everything that goes on inside their head onto black and white paper and send it out into the world. These books last for absolutely years. So I always do encourage our authors to, as a part of their introduction, tell us a little bit about their why, and then tell us what we're about to learn, because, you want people to tell them, and then you tell them, and then you tell them what you told them.
Yeah, you've got to, you've got to have that hook to get them in to read, because I mean, there's plenty of books that I've started and I'm just like, no, I'm not going to waste my time. It hasn't captured me quick enough, so I'm not going to bother with you. I'm going to move on to the next one. But then there's other books that I will read and refer to and go back, constantly, because I've got that attachment to go, hold on, this actually spoke to me. So I'm sure it's probably going to speak to me again. This episode is proudly supported by the Busy School. Educators know better than anyone there's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to learning. And for some young people, the right environment can make all the difference. The Busy School supports Year 11 and 12 students who have disengaged from mainstream education, smaller classes, individual support, practical learning, and real pathways to work or further study. There are no fees, with uniforms, supplies, and meals included. That helps remove barriers so students can focus on building confidence, reconnecting with learning, and taking their next step. The Busy School is part of the Busy Group, a not-for-profit with almost 50 years experience supporting people through education, employment, and training. Find a campus near you at busyschools.qld.edu.au.
Great. And, it's again that finding that audience and finding that book, the books that speak to you, and having a think about, well, what makes it speak to me as well? What techniques, what part of it, spoke to me that maybe I could think about that will speak to somebody else as well. I do, people always say to me, what will make me a writer, etc. And I do say to people, read.
Yeah, it creates just that ability to communicate. Like when my kids, they're all grown up now, I've got my grandkids now, so the whole thing's just about to start again. But when we were young parents, yeah, I know. We were told, make sure you are reading your kids two or three books a night. Just constantly read to them. Just show them books. Have books available, because the better readers they become, the better communicators they can become. It builds their vocab. It builds their knowledge. It builds their understanding. It widens their scope, so that then when they have to tell something, or they have to bring something across, then they have all those extra, arrows over their shoulder to bring out, to get their point across, or their message, or whatever it is.
I couldn't agree more. And I feel like, I get a lot of people asking me about, print, about ebooks and audiobooks. So we publish everything in ebook and digital book, and we've got our books on Vital Source and everything else as well. And, I don't mind ebooks as well. Not as many people listen to them as you think, and it's a bit different in professional. But I am such a person that print books are so important. And, I want to see more people reading instead of scrolling as well. Any opportunity I have personally to get in front of my own kids and to sit there and flick through a book, and also even just show kind of, books change you. It's a really funny thing. You can finish a book and, you are fundamentally or profoundly changed by that experience of reading the book. And, I go on and, especially my poor 5-year-old, I constantly tell her, you wouldn't believe what happened in this book and this book and this book. And, oh, my God, I thought this and stuff like that as well. But I think it's really important for us, especially in a world that still scrolls and consumes so much information by screen, that, we do still sit around and have books and see the value that of books and the content that's inside books, and how much books can change your life, whether it's fiction and you're just like, oh, blown away by the story and the twist at the end, which just happened to me on the weekend, or whether it's nonfiction and here you are, you're developing and learning and thinking and it's challenging you as well. So I think, not only we need to show ourselves reading more, but also the wonderful effects that books have in our lives and the positivity it can to change our lives as well for good.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a little Kindle myself and I just downloaded a bunch of old books that I've always wanted to read, but the all the free ones that are no longer copyrighted and stuff like that, but they're the original writings, so the old
Yeah.
just the English of their time and things like that. But then I also love, and look, honestly, I can say I don't do it nearly as much as I used to, but I still love the feel of a book, like to sit there and actually turn pages, or you go into a bookstore or Vinnie's and you go over to the book section and you get that smell of books and you're just like, yeah, and it brings a nostalgia to it. So I was going to ask, like, because a lot of people are saying, like print is dying, it's dead, it's had its time. Do you think that's the case, or is print something that is just inherently human that we want to hold on to?
I mean, it is a hard one. I've been in the publishing industry for 25 years, and I remember really when the advent of ebooks and everything, and I was really like, oh God, this could be the end of the industry, but I really don't. And I think, kind of like vinyls having a renaissance, even like tapes are having a renaissance. I don't want to say CDs are having a renaissance, but tapes, old school tapes are having a renaissance. I don't see books like that really, but I see, books will continue to have a place always. I find it fascinating because, I look at the numbers year on year and, yes, there is, good growth in digital and audio, but it's nothing really compared to the actual amount the industry moves in print. And, print is definitely not dead and, hopefully not going anywhere. I'm also really cognizant about, some of the studies about how we consume content, screen versus print. I know myself, I know my own children, it is a very different experience between print and digital. And I know myself, like I read a huge amount and I read a huge amount digitally, but any opportunity I can to sit down with a print book, I always will, because you're right, it is that tactile feeling. And I just feel like I sit there and maybe it's because my phone's further away or, just the take in and the absorption of the book is so fundamental to the experience.
Yeah, I find when I read in a digital format, either for pleasure or for work, I tend to miss things. I will scan rather than read. I will, so
Yeah.
almost the difference between listening and hearing. It's you look at it. So if I really want to digest something or I have to proof something that's got to go out to that's quite important, that's got to go out to the public from a school perspective, I'll always print it
Always
off
print it out, yes.
and I read it slowly. And then I was taught a trick many years ago by one of my teachers that when you're proofing, obviously you've got to make sure that it's coherent, but then you've also got to make sure that it's in order. Now, I wouldn't suggest this for you. It probably takes way too long, but for teacher stuff, for comments and things, I was told read it backwards because it will you'll pick up grammatical errors, you'll pick up full stops, you'll pick up all these little things that whilst you're reading it top to bottom, you won't get.
I couldn't agree more. So within our publishing process, in essence, when a book is kind of finished being written, it's been reviewed, it's had the last read through from the author, it comes into production. And that ultimately means that it moves into us. And it moves into our editorial process, and one of our amazing professional editors takes on the manuscript. They normally take like 4 to 6 weeks. They do the full editorial process, all the checking and everything, goes back to the author, comes back in, and it gets ready for typesetting. And this is a really interesting part. So then this goes to, we've got 2 typesetters, Kerry, our main typesetter in particular, and, she has typeset books for like 30, 40 years. She's absolutely incredible. She even reads some of them because she loves to read little bits, and she guesses the authors and what they're like. And she spends a lot of time putting those words, those black and white words on pages to make them look as appealing and as attractive as well. And then it comes back to us and it's called page proofs. And this, to some extent, is my absolute favourite part of the publishing process. It's, the cover design's awesome and it feels like it comes alive then, but actually when you get your page proofs, it's like, oh my God, and I send an email, no matter what author it is, like Leon Furs gets the same email for his page proofs, and it might be his 5th or 6th book with us, and I send him an email that says, print this out at actual size, because our books, are a little bit smaller, and go and read it somewhere where you didn't write this book, and read every single word. And if you can read it out as well, read out loud, because then you'll pick up anything. But it's absolutely fascinating. You think you've picked up every error. Our editors think they've picked up every error. But seeing the words on paper, on print, you pick up so much more. And it's incredible. And because it looks different, it's been typeset. And your eyes, my eyes in particular, and our editor's eyes, you see different things. You see it a different way. But I'm a massive fan, and anyone who has gone through the author process with me will have a printout of their book, which they have, read every single word. And it's a really nice moment as well, but it is also that, my God, moment for a lot of these authors, because the next time they see their book, it normally comes out of a box with a cover on it, and it's
Wow.
it's their advanced copy. So the page proofs is such a special part of the process as well, and such a milestone to get there. But yes, even Leon Furs laughs at me regularly, because even after 4 or 5 books I tell him the same thing, and he always does it because he knows it's such a solid process to print out your work.
Yeah. I guess, process driven is so important, because it's there for a reason, and it's proven its worth. Do you ever find yourself when you're actually supposed to be proofing or editing a book, that you just get actually caught up in it and you forget that you're supposed to be working and you just start reading?
All the time. It's also fascinating because a lot of the time I speak to authors very early in the process. So, they have a conversation with me, and, maybe a month or 2 later, they'll start sending some chapters, and I'll look for the table of contents, and I might look at some more chapters, and, I will see the bulk of the book. But when I'm reviewing it, I'm looking for different things, and, where, every time. I had a fascinating conversation with an author, and it must have been it's probably a year and a half ago. And I remember actually it was a Friday afternoon. I had to pick up one of the kids from after assembly. So I had a bit of time. I was like, I'll have a glass of wine. I had a glass of wine. We got into this deep and meaningful conversation about a chapter in his book. And I was like, oh my God. And it sent me down the next, week down a couple of rabbit holes, researching all of this, etc. And the book I just saw in page proofs 2 weeks ago, and I'd seen it come in, had gone out to the editor, and so I hadn't really had a good read of it. Came in on page proofs, and I was like, I read the whole thing, and I was like, what am I doing? I'm eating my lunch. I'm still reading chapters. I was like, oh my God, and it was fascinating because a year and a half later, also the conversation and the added element. So, we'd been talking about time, then this whole chapter has developed so well, and the additional research, I'm just like, oh my God. Of course, I ended up reading the whole book and eating my lunch at the same time, and I was just like, oh my God, that chapter was absolutely fantastic. The rest of the book is great, but that chapter really so it is I do get carried away sometimes. I do read everything that goes through, and it's fascinating because I do normally read it quite end at the page proofs or as it's about to go to print, and that's normally when I pick it up again. However, if I need to go and launch a book, which sometimes happens, I need to go and read it again, and the day before the book launch, because actually I read so much, I can't keep it all in my head. And so normally I pick out like one or two key things, but if I'm going to go and talk about somebody's book or host a book launch, etc., I do have a quick speed read of their book of the day before, just so what they're discussing is front of mind. Because otherwise, I could probably, every book in our collection, give you one or two kind of my two favourite things, but it would be hard to sit and talk to somebody for like half an hour unless I'd read it again the day before.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Dr. Pittman, Dr. Matt Pittman does. Matt Luke,
Yes,
I get him mixed up all the time. I get him mixed up all the time because I've got a brother who looks very similar to him, so it's just anyway. But yes, how he does his little book reviews, the 300 words or less book review on this, and it's just fascinating what he draws from each book. So I and again he was another one of my guests on the show. Yeah, so Leon we spoke, Nick Jackson, Matt Esterman, and I think and so I've had all these people, and so I was like, yeah, it's amazing how. And I remember the conversation that I had with Nick Jackson, and then all of a sudden he goes, yeah, we're thinking about doing this. And then so I'm just getting conversations with all these different people, and then all of a sudden a year later he goes, oh, here's the book.
And it is incredible, what can sometimes spark out of a conversation as well. I've got an author who's written 2 books with me, and he's emailed me a couple of times saying, I'm still writing, I'm writing this, I'm writing that, and we've gone back and forth. He sent me some ideas, and I was like, oh, it's not there yet for me, but that's okay. I don't know, there was just something. I sent him some books to review. He sent me another email. And then he sent me another email. Then I sent him some questions about, this, asking a couple of things. And then one sentence, and I was like, there's the book. That's the book I want. Write that book. Write that book, please. And so off he's gone, and we're going to chat in a couple of weeks. But I was like, I did not expect that book to come from him. And I was like, I have not seen anything on that. That would be a fantastic idea. That would be align really well. Yeah, write that book. And so we're going to catch up in a couple of weeks when he's back from holidays. And hopefully I've planted enough of a seed and he's planted enough of a seed. And hopefully we'll see that book next year as well.
Absolutely. Does it ever get to the point where you're back and forth with the prospective authors, and then all of a sudden, you just go, look, no, this isn't going to work. I'm really sorry. I'd love it to be successful, and I really see that there's potential in there, but just not now. How does that conversation go, if and when?
It does. And as much as I talk about all these fantastic books that we take on and everything else, there is a lot of books that we see that just aren't ready, or the concept's not ready, or the chapter's not grabbing enough, or it's missing as well. We do see also books that are written a lot of the time for mixed audiences. I probably would say that's my number one, that as soon as somebody emails me and said I've written a book for teachers and for parents, I'm like, it's not the right place. It's not the right book for us. If it's teacher, it's either for teachers or it's for parents. We do a lot less of parents as well, because parents is a very hard market. They've already got to be in our system and be writing for us, that kind of thing as well. So I guess, I do write a lot of, I don't want to say rejection letters, but I'm more like, can I send you some of our other books? Yet again, back to my read, do some work, have a think about how other people are doing it as well. All that being said, I rejected a book about a year ago from a very well-known educational consultant. It just wasn't quite right. It wasn't quite there. At the time, I think I sent back a page of feedback about the manuscript, and it was a fairly well-developed manuscript, like 26,000 word kind of manuscript. It wasn't exactly where I thought it could be, and I said no. And this was a fairly well-known educational consultant, etc. And I was like, and I remember I was like, oh God, I hope I haven't pissed them off, kind of thing. And they wrote back to me a year later, and I remember actually we sent out some books. They bought some books, but somebody, and they sent me a manuscript, the work. If I was like, my. And the next morning I sent back an author agreement saying, I would love to have your book. Here's the agreement. Let's go forth and conquer. And the author wrote back saying, thank you for the feedback. I worked out what I needed to do, and I spoke to a couple of other authors, and I worked out the style and the look and how to differentiate myself from the other books, and I took on all the feedback, and he'll have a book in his hands by the end of this year.
Fantastic. So, yeah, I guess it takes that honesty, but also I guess it takes the ability, and which is probably quite difficult because people, when they're producing something of their own, they have that emotional attachment to it. But then you come at it with a, yeah. Hey, look, I'm sort of crushing your dreams a little bit here, but I'm trying to help the dreams come up though. I'm breaking this one because I know it's bigger.
Yes.
So it must be a fine line.
Oh yes, and I do try and do it as nicely as possible. It is hard, and it is hard taking rejection. We've all been rejected, haven't we? Or, and I don't want to ever to see it as a rejection letter. I do want to see it as, you need more work, you need more development. We all need more work and development and iterations. Like, that's just human nature as well. And look, I'm also looking for a very particular thing. So just because it's not right for us or for our press, a lot of the time I do pass people on to other people as well, or maybe other publishers. I encourage people to publish with Routledge. Taylor and Francis, my ex-publisher. I'm not interested in academic publishing and PhDs.
Yep.
Even Leon first came to me the other day, and we've just put his Practical AI Strategies book number 2 into production, which is very exciting. And he's like, oh, so what do I do with my PhD? And I'm like, go to Taylor and Francis. I'm not interested. I think it's wonderful. You got it. I want your teacher book. Thank you. And he wrote the teacher book that I wanted as well. So, yes. And I've been in the industry a while. I know everyone else at every other publishing house. So if it's not right for me, then I pass it on to the right person as well. Both Selena Fisk and Amy Green have both done teacher books with me, both very successful teacher books. And what a joy both of them have been to have. I couldn't speak highly enough of those two women. And both of those women have come to me throughout our publishing relationships and processes and said, I want to publish for corporate. I'm really interested in, that business market. I want to book in the airport. And I'm like, please, let me, support you in getting that book. And so, both of them have gone off and published with, a sister imprinter, a friend of ours as well, and stuff like that as well. So, it is, sometimes it's not the right book. Some people write to me with different things. And I'm like, no, it's not the right thing, So I think books find their place. So, for example, we've had the lovely Selena Fisk and Amy Green publish a number of books with us. And I've got great relationships with both of them, and both of them came to me at some point and said, I really want a corporate book. And I'm like, great, you should do a corporate book, 100%. If that's the stages you want to get onto and that's the message and you want an airport book. And, both of them, I've said, this is the place to go. There's another publisher, you can go to. So they both have had corporate books as well. And I guess, I don't make books that go into the airport, and it's not what I have ever wanted to do or pretend to do as well. Our books are sent out by educational suppliers, are supported by educational associations, etc. So, our books get to where teachers and educators are. So, I do know a huge amount of people in the industry, and if it's not right for us, then there is probably a spot for that book somewhere else. And, I do all I can to help our authors find that next place as well, if it's not here for us.
Absolutely. Well, you've almost made it sound exciting to write a book.
Oh, it is. Like, some people even come back and write a couple of books with us. I find it incredible as well.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things where I guess it has to be, and I think it was either very early in the conversation or just before we started recording, that it's it's a timing thing. It's got to be at the right time. It's got to be the right story. So for for teachers who are mulling it over, and other educators who are mulling it over, going, "Oh, should I? People have recommended I should," et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What would you suggest that they do first? Like, just like you mentioned earlier, write a table of contents or write a chapter, or just start to just throw some ideas down? Like, how would you, and
100%.
even if nothing comes from it, like, would that be the best way to start, just to either get people off their backs or just to actually see if it's got wheels?
Oh, yeah, I think I always suggest a table of contents, but I guess I probably step back a little bit and say, if you're going to like old school mind map it, there's a topic in the middle and you had all your bits coming out, what would be the big 10 topics? You don't have to write 10 chapters, but, what would be 10 topics? We've got 10 weeks in a term, 10 chapter books always work really well. People can follow them on it. What would be your 10 topics to start with around your topic? You might only end up writing 6 chapters, or you might end up having 12 topics and, 15 topics. But what would be the 10 or 15 things you would really want to get across? And then those would, in essence, be your chapters. Put them in a logical order and then start annotating them. And when I say annotating, I'm starting to say, well, here's your topic. If you had like a chapter and you had 3 or 4 things you wanted to say, what would be those 3 or 4 things you wanted to say in that chapter? And then those are your subheadings. And then ultimately, you're just writing little articles under each of those subheadings. Some of those will be quite a bit longer and they might be 1,000 words, and some might only be a couple of 100 words when you actually get to the writing. But I do say plan.
Yep.
The more time you spend on that table of contents, the better it will be. And there's a couple of reasons why we say that. Most people, if they get writer's block or they get stuck, they're not actually getting stuck because it's not coming out. There's something else going wrong. There's repetition. So you're stuck because it's like, oh, I'm stuck because this isn't flowing, or this isn't coming out right because it should be somewhere else, or I've said it somewhere else, or it's like there's something not quite right. So I always suggest to people to plan as much as you can in advance. Write those big chapter headings, write those chapter subheadings, and then start having a think about, well, okay, if I have for example, I'm going to make it really easy for myself because it's getting a bit late. If I have, I'm wanting to write something on cognitive load theory, I know a little bit, I know about Sweller, etc. Does my audience need to know every single person that's fought with Sweller about cognitive load theory? Potentially not. That teacher in the classroom probably needs to know kind of that high level stuff about cognitive load, probably only needs to know about Sweller, maybe one other person. But start having a think about also that kind of that evidence you're going to draw in, or the stories you're going to draw in, or, you've got a great story that would look great in that as well. So I really do say encourage having a think about a table of contents. The better you plan, the better the book will go as well. Once you've got a table of contents, give a chapter a go. Seriously. See how it comes out. Write the easy one first. Write the one that's just going to flow out of you, because that actually becomes quite a cathartic process, actually. And then if it comes out, actually, I've got something. And at that rank, go have a chat to a publisher, see if more comes out, etc. But yes, I would recommend it. I find, a lot of educators have a lot going on around here. They're so experienced. They do want to make education a better industry. They've got so much to share. It is such a sharing profession. And it's one of the things I find absolutely wonderful. How many teachers want to share what they do, how they do it, how their school is running with other people. I just find it absolutely wonderful. And I think, oh my God, you're right, every teacher has a story. So yes, I do encourage all to write. And, even if it doesn't turn out to be a book, anything you write can also be reused. It's your IP, it's your content, put it out there. And, even if they're not a bit nervous about writing or not sure where to start, you could always start with something like a Substack, just getting some ideas out there, learning how to, formulate, 500, 600 word articles. But also I encourage people to publish. I really do. And not just publish like books, publish with journals, publish in articles, put yourself out there, publish on LinkedIn. Just by putting yourself out there, you open up your world so much. By putting your ideas out there, having, people will have a conversation with you. And, that's how many people, start their careers in writing or writing books as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's having it's yeah, just taking that leap of faith of going, hey, I do have something that is valuable, and I've yeah, let's just it's that that like Brene Brown says, that 8 seconds of uncomfortable. Just put it out there, and once it's done, all of a sudden you go, oh, hold on, it wasn't that bad. There was a little bit of type of thing, and you just have that conversation, and you start a conversation as well. So. Um, But we've been chatting for just about an hour now, so that's amazing. I love the passion. I love hearing what's involved. It's actually opened my eyes to what's all I've seen is people write the books. It's in the movies. It's just a publisher just banging on the person. Hey, you've got your first bit of funding, and get the book out, and quick, and then all of a sudden they have their crisis of faith, and
Yeah.
but then they go out to the seaside village, and off they come, and they come back with the book, or as one of my favourite movies, Romancing the Stone, they just go out for an amazing adventure through South America and come back with a great book. So
Completely. I would as well. If I had amazing adventures in South America, it'd be sounding wonderful.
absolutely. Now, the reason I reached out to you, and I said it earlier as well, is because I've had number of your published authors as guests on my podcast. So I wanted to reach out and find more about the process and what's involved. But if others wanted to reach out and find you and talk about, hey, I've got an idea, or I've got a half-written piece, or I've got a Substack, and I'd like to formulate it into a book,
Yeah, yeah.
what would be the best way to get in
Yeah.
contact with you? And I'll put it in the
Look,
show notes.
we've got a real clear submissions process on our website, which is ultimately get in touch and start having a conversation. We are really collaborative here. I'm really collaborative. So I really like to get to know people. I want them to get to know me, the press, the team, because it is a working relationship. Some of these authors, have been with me for a while and, going to be with me for a while as well. I pay royalties once a year to them, so they get a nice check off me once a year. I make them come to events, and I promote them in every opportunity I can. Any selfies I can get in as well, I'm there as well. But ultimately, it is the start of a relationship. So I say get in touch. If if you're based in Melbourne, I do coffee. I even say come and have a coffee. Come and meet me face to face and have a chat. But anyone in the state, drop me an email, and then I'll send you my calendar, and we find a time, and we start to have that conversation as well. And I really feel it's important to have that conversation to start as well, for you to learn a little bit about me. I learn a little bit about our author's story as well, and what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah. So I'll throw a link to your LinkedIn profile, and also to Amba Press in the show notes, so they can, if people want to find you, they can start harassing you that way.
Sure.
Now, look, Alicia, I want to thank you for your time again, and for your passion, and for what you're doing for education. I guess if you ever get bored in publishing, you'd be an amazing English literature teacher. You could, you taught me how to write a book.
Love it. Oh my God, I really would.
So if you ever need a side hustle, you can always go into teaching.
I do take a lot of work experience, kids and interns and stuff like that. My mother was a teacher, and so was my father. So I've grown up around teachers as well. So yes, I even got a TAE in training and assessment a couple of years ago as well, because I feel so passionately about sharing knowledge and the power of education as well. So yeah, 100%. I'd love to become a teacher. That's probably my next life, if not a cat.
Next life. Absolutely. Now, Alicia, it wouldn't be the Tattoo Teacher podcast if I didn't actually ask you, do you have any tattoos?
No, I do not have any tattoos. My husband is heavily tattooed. But no, I never decided anything that I'd want on my body long enough to stay there. I do love them though,
nothing,
on others.
Yeah, you can't put white out over a tattoo, can you?
Definitely not. Or a red pen.
But absolutely, yeah. That'd just give me PTSD seeing the red pen come in. So, But Alicia, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you for everything you're doing in promoting education, promoting educators, their thoughts, their ideas, and just the passion that you bring to this area.
Oh, unreal. Well, it's been an absolute joy, Phil. chatting to you. Thank you for organising this and waiting for the time to have a chat as well. And thank you for all you do to support our authors and to support the education community generally. It is so important that we have these wonderful conversations and we have different people putting out their ideas into the world around education.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again, Alicia, and you have a wonderful evening.
You too. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you so much for listening to the Tattooed Teacher podcast. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it insightful. If you like what you heard, it would mean so much to me if you could either like, follow, and subscribe to whatever platform you are listening on. The music was by DJ Fruit Salad. Thanks again for listening. Stay cool. Be blessed.